and welcome back. We are once again here with another week of the William Penn Coaches Show. Before we get started here with our first coach of the night, we would like to take you through some of the activities going on this weekend. First off, the men's and women's track and field teams will be in Mount Vernon, Iowa for the Cornell Invitational this weekend, along with the number 4 ranked men's lacrosse team in action down at St. Ambrose, along with the women's lacrosse team following them. And then here in Oskaloosa, our William Penn baseball and softball teams each at home Friday and Saturday. The girls will be taking on Missouri Valley, and the guys will be hosting Mid-America Nazarene in each of those doubleheaders on Friday and Saturday. So as we get into it here, our first guest of the night is the William Penn baseball coach, Mike Laird. Coach, thank you for joining us. First off here, kind of want to talk about the last series. Your team went 2-2 in that series against Clark. How did you feel the team performed in that series?
Well, we kind of have our backs against the wall because we had a pretty poor start the first couple weekends, and we really have some catching up to do if we're going to be making the conference tournament. So we knew that was a must series at Clark, and Clark last year swept us 4. So they're a very good team, especially on the road up there. And so we were pretty happy with coming out of there 2-2. I mean, you always want to, get 3 or 4, but they're a very, very good team, and it was on the road, and our guys responded really well.
And we were kind of talking about him before we got on here, but Abel Medueno, been one of your guys' best pitchers on the team, leading the team with a 2.31 ERA. What have you seen for him this year that has worked, and how has he just had the success he's had?
Abel is he's a winner. I mean, not just physically. He obviously has a 90-plus fastball, but he's a plus competitor, and he dominates the other team. Even with CMU, who's ranked 6th in the country, he kind of dominated their hitters. And their coach and I were talking later. He doesn't give them much time to think, and he works fast, very aggressive. He forces the issue, and he's a great team guy on top of it. I mean, he's just obviously a very welcome addition to this year's team.
And I know we've talked about it just a few times of you guys have suffered through a couple of injuries to some of your top guys, haven't always been the healthiest. How do you and your staff handle that when some of your guys are out and mixing up the lineups?
I'll tell you what, that has been, this year has just been, we spent, with my GAs and coach, we just spent a lot of time talking with each other and bouncing stuff off back and forth and back and forth. We spend a couple hours a day actually trying to figure things out sometimes, and typically, we come to pretty much the same conclusions, but we've got guys that are in and out of the lineup. Arroyo's first team all-conference player. He was our 3-hitter all year last year. He's a very, very good player. Led the league in RBIs. He's done probably for the whole year, and that really, really hurts. And we have a pretty small, pretty slim margin for error anyway. We don't have a lot of guys that can hit like that or play like that in center field, and so that's a big loss. And then Brian, who was 10-3 last year, Thomas, he was also an all-conference player. We've just been our training staff has done an absolutely outstanding job just kind of getting him to the weekend, and working through with him throughout the week to keep him so he can come back and pitch the next weekend. But Brian's a huge part of our team too, and those 2 guys especially. We got Martinez. Martinez is a big hitter. He's our 4-hitter. He's been in and out. We've just had a lot of things that it would have been easier for us, I think, had we been able to keep those guys healthy.
Yeah, it definitely is harder to catch kind of that rhythm when you keep having guys coming in and out of that lineup. But with that, though, you guys have had a few younger players step up. I know Aiden North catching most of the games now for your team, along with Marco Ayala at second base, kind of stepped in, done a nice job. Can you just kind of talk about how you have flipped those players in and out of the lineup?
Well, our team's a little different than some of the other NAIA teams, especially in our league. We have a little bit more of a mix of transfers and freshmen. We're probably about 1/3 transfers, 2/3 freshmen normally. So a lot of the other schools, they're just solid straight transfers. They'll bring in 20 transfers a year and call it good and kind of fight it out. We'd like to think that we can develop some of our guys and work them through the program, and certainly Aiden he's a good athlete, and he's very coachable. He's hit pretty well, really, especially for a freshman. Ayala has played some. He mostly as a base runner, but probably the top freshman has been Aiden so far behind the dish.
And then just kind of going back here to, you said how earlier your team started out slowly, but what does the team need to do to kind of catch up here in the latter part of the season, last month of games, to kind of get back in that race where you want to be?
Oh, man, we got to win. I mean, I hate to, it sounds like it's that simple. We need to win a lot of games. We've got 16 left, and we're 6-10 in the league, for crying out loud. We need to be about 500 even to get into the conference tournament. So, and these teams coming up, I mean, for example, Mid-Am tomorrow and Saturday, last 2 years they've been in the World Series. They're ranked about almost in the top 10. And we've beaten 2 teams in the top 10. So at times we've played very well, but we just have a very small margin for error. And we're going to have to keep doing that with Grandview, Mount Mercy, Graceland, all the way through.
And then last thing here for you, Coach. No, MLB season has started. Do you have a favorite MLB team, and why are they your favorite MLB team?
Well, I'm going to say the Yankees. And one of the reasons was my daughter, first of all, is a huge Yankees fan, and she made me go down and watch them play St. Louis for Father's Day this last summer. She loves Aaron Judge. Last I heard, they were 5-0. And so they've got the number 99, my grandson, my daughter, everybody's got that on. And their manager literally called me from a motel room and wished me happy birthday this summer. So my daughter arranged that, and I was kind of taken aback by that. I go, wow, for a couple minutes I'm talking to, the manager of the Yankees. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I'd say them. I'm not really a big MLB guy, I'm much more, college, and I'm concerned about how well we're doing more than anybody else, actually.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm also a Yankees fan. They're currently sitting at 6-1, so.
6-1, okay.
Yep.
Good.
So again, we want to thank you for joining us out here at the Wood Iron Grill, and we'll be right back here with our next guest. And we are back here with our second guest of the night here on the William Penn Coaches Show, head coach for the men's and women's golf teams, Elise Warren.
Thanks for having me.
So, Coach, to start off here, we're going to talk about your women's team. They have won the last 2 tournaments in a row and the first 2 tournaments here of this spring. What has been the key so far for them to win these 2 tournaments?
It's interesting. We've won, but we haven't felt like it's been a big success. Obviously, you got to take every win. You're not going to win all the time, but we haven't really played amazing. We've had people step up at the right times and maybe help some others who had a bad round here or there, which is what you want. You want people to find their game throughout the spring and slowly get into their rhythm and everything. But we've still got a few bumps in the road right now, and we're seeing some really good signs from a lot of girls. And if we're all firing on the same day, it's going to be a really, really good round. So plenty to work on, and still quite a bit of time until conference. So we're just making sure that we're getting better every day. But still happy with the win. But we're always wanting to do a little bit better.
Yeah, and you guys had a little bit of a change there that last tournament. You played all the rounds just in one day because of weather. So kind of, how did you get your team through that change there, and what kind of got you still to be successful?
Yeah, it was actually kind of good because we played in golf carts, and it was kind of like practice for conference. We play in golf carts. We play 36 holes the first day, so we just treated it as let's prepare for conference, and playing 36 holes, it takes a lot out of you, so mentally. So it was really good practice for us to do that again. And then we also were missing one of our top players, Gabby. She was ill that week, so it was nice to see Liv and Emma step up. They played really, really well when a couple of our girls weren't really playing their absolute best that day. So, we love the challenge. It doesn't really matter. Golf is in the spring. It changes all the time. You know, the schedule changes, the weather affects, changes the format of the play and everything. So we're used to that. It was a good opportunity to be able to play 36 in one day.
Yeah, and talking about the weather changes, how do you and your staff kind of handle whether or not you go outside or stay inside for the day? Here in Iowa, you never really know what the weather's going to be like. So how has that kind of been handled by you guys?
Yeah, so the general rule of thumb is that we're going to go outside if it's playable, right? If we're going to play in that weather in a tournament, we want to get outside and play. Obviously, sometimes it's not worth going outside, just, risking getting ill because of the cold and things like that. But in general, we want to go outside whenever we can. The last couple of days have been really cold. We've had a little bit of flurries here and there, so it really hasn't been worth going outside. And even the pro shops at the golf courses are closed. So when it gets that cold, then we have our indoor facilities we can lean on and use those and still make sure that we're being productive. But ultimately, we might change it a little bit and just make practices a little shorter so that we're not exposed as much. But we're going to be outside because we have to play in those conditions in tournaments as well.
Right. And then just kind of switching over here onto the guys' side. You guys played at the Garden Championship. We talked about that here. An experience on a pro course, like you talked about, kind of being a good experience for the team. How did that end up going up for your team?
Well, the scores went pretty, but like I said, it was a PGA Tour course, so it was really tough. And the guys learnt in that week that why it was a PGA Tour course. And sometimes you need to have a really bad week just to kick you into gear and really figure out what you need to work on. And sometimes you can get away with, reasonable results and you don't really learn from them. But it was honestly a blessing in disguise. We were able to see where we were really at, what we really needed to work on, and really get tested in a difficult condition. So the weather was against us. The golf course was a tough condition for us. And then it also the mental strain of having to think twice as much about every single shot that you hit because it can be so penal to you, just a small miss. So ultimately it was frustrating for everybody, but we came out of it. We had a really good chat with the whole team, and I'm really excited for this next tournament because they've really took a lot out of it, even though you're always disappointed by the score. So we've done a lot of qualifying. We've kind of done a bit of a reset, and we're like, hey, whoever plays the best this week, you're going to go to the next tournament. So they've all taken that challenge on, and we've got our last day of qualifying tomorrow, so it'll be exciting to see who earns their spot for the next one.
Yeah, and then kind of talking about that, getting on to the next time, both your teams will be in action this upcoming Monday in Oklahoma City and the guys in Kansas. So how does your staff kind of handle splitting those up? I think you have 3 assistants.
Yeah.
So how do you guys go about splitting that up between the coaches?
Yeah, I'm so lucky to have 3 assistants. It makes everything a lot easier and it enables us to do a lot more with the large squads that we have. So we've got the busiest week that we have throughout the season this week. So the girls with myself and Coach Ivy will be leaving on Saturday for Oklahoma. We'll get back Tuesday. And then the boys with Coach Chris and Coach Brock will be leaving on Sunday to head down to Kansas. Both great tournaments, both going to be great challenges for each team. And then actually on Wednesday we have the Simpson Invitational in Des Moines for all of our varsity reserve athletes. So anyone who didn't travel is going to go to that tournament on Wednesday. So, like I said, I'm just really lucky to have all the staff that I have, and it enables us to be able to split up and travel in the same weeks. And give each team, the experience their own individual experience. Sometimes we travel the teams together, but they enjoy both. They enjoy separate and they enjoy being together. So it's going to be a really great week.
And then just lastly here, those 2 tournaments, what are kind of your expectations? Talked about the development and how you're kind of re-qualifying still, so not quite sure who may be going to those tournaments, but What are your expectations for Monday?
Yeah, so on the guys' side, Our expectations are just that they learned. They learned from last week. We had a couple of guys who played really well. John and Francois played much better than the other three during that tournament, so they earned a spot for the next one. Excuse me. Honestly, the course is going to be a little bit easier than that one, so I'm expecting them to play better. But, the score can sometimes deceive how well you play. But ultimately, we just want to see them be competitive and not lose their heads and trust the process and really just play with full attention and on every single shot. And encourage each other, be a really great teammate, and all those kinds of things that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. So, I don't necessarily like putting numbers on things because you just never know with weather and all these kinds of things. But it's a very competitive field, so we're going to be able to see how we line up against those teams. And then on the girls' side, we're playing at Oklahoma City's home course. They're one of the best in the country right now. So, no chance we really win that, but what we can do is we can really compete, and a couple of the girls have played out there before. They hosted nationals out there a couple of years ago, so a lot of our girls are pretty familiar with the course. So it'll be a really fun tournament. It's a good challenge.
All right, well, good luck, and hopefully the challenges are good for each team.
Yeah.
We want to thank you for joining us out here once again, and we'll be right back here with our next guest on the William Penn Coaches Show. All right, we are back here with our third and final guest tonight, the head coach for the men's and women's track and field teams, Victoria Vineker. Thank you for joining us out here.
Not a problem.
So just kind of getting started into it here, how has the spring season been so far for your team?
It's been good. We haven't really been able to get outside this week, so that was a little bit of a bummer. But it's been solid. Coming off of indoor nationals, a lot of them came off some very good performances. And so right off the bat, they were thinking they were going to PR, and that's just not how it works. You're going to have to come into a little bit of a slump and then kind of build back up because you don't want to peak too early. But it's been solid. We had a few meets so far, and we've had some really great performances. And so it's working in our favor really well.
Like you said, weather hasn't been the easiest thing to handle as of late. But in the terms of that, how do you kind of go forward, even though it's outdoor season, still having to practice inside? What kind of measures do you take for the team?
It depends on the event. So with the weather being the way it is, I'm not going to lie, we chase weather a little bit. So poor Brad from transportation has to deal with us switching at the last second every 50 times. But whenever it comes to practices, we just do best with what we got. So with like throws, we're able to throw a little bit inside with that turf. Just depending on what time slot we have, they get a little tired or they're really ready to go. Jumps-wise, we just work on bounding and coming through and working on their run. It's a bummer we don't have a pit, but our kids are really resilient. They really understand what they need to do in order to get better, and they know that they don't need to do all out all the time. And like I said, our sprint side, we're able to have a little bit of a track up top, so it's easy for us to actually implement some stuff. But whenever we can get outside, we definitely try to, just because we like the outside. AK, it's nice to be warm.
Yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, you guys have been very busy as of late. Last Thursday, you had the Central Invitational. Then on that Friday and Saturday, you guys had the Central Methodist Invitational. Is there kind of a purpose of having back-to-back meets, or do you take different people to different events? How do you kind of go about having those meets back-to-back?
Yeah, so it just really depends. Like I said, we're trying to get weather in, and because you never know what's going to happen later on in the season. And so, hey, it might be snowing in April, so, I want to get as many meets in as we can. But it really depends on the event groups that they're in because, distance didn't travel on that second meet because they just needed one meet in, where a lot of our field events needed the double meets, and same with our sprints. And also depends on competition because depending on who you're going up against or what events. So you might have someone running the 1-2 at Central, and you might need to run the 4x1 at CMU. And so we want to make sure we get the best in for our kids each time. So that's why we kind of double up. We don't double up every weekend because then they'll just be gassed by the end of it. But it really just depends because some of them just need the reps of competition, and that's what we go off of by.
So I know there wasn't much time from indoor to outdoor, but who have you seen this spring that has kind of made a few leaps and bounds, maybe progressed a little bit better than you thought they may have?
I would have to list our whole roster. Coming from indoor and outdoor, our whole team has made leaps and bounds, really. You really can't pinpoint anybody. Also, you get to outdoor, there's so many different events. You go from the 60 to the 100. You go from the weight throw to the hammer throw. Having outdoor events, it's just you have the wind, you have the elements, but we've had some really solid successes. Like I said, we've had our hammer throwers are doing really well. West and Nick are just under qualifying. We have John close in triple jump. We have Show in the 100. Our distance crew's about to rack up just again like they have all indoor season. So I could go on and on. Our girls 4x1 is making some moves as well. And so it's going to be really solid watching them progress. So we're really excited for this outdoor season.
On the outdoor season topic, what are some of the goals and maybe things that you've set for the team that you want them to hit during this season?
Our team's hungry. Coming off of that indoor performance on our men's side where they got third, they want to repeat. They want more. They want to make sure that they even up the ante going into outdoor. Like they're sitting there, they're like, hey coach, what can we do to score more points? Like we're going to do whatever we need to. And it was fun to watch our women's side celebrate with our men. Like they got third too. And so like the women, they're ready to just mess some people up a little bit. They want those W's. They want to be the best. And so outdoor season, a lot of theirs is just really qualifying for nationals is some big goals for a lot of them. I think we're a little bit more of an outdoor team. So it's going to be fun to watch how they progress through. And like I said, it's not even us setting goals for them anymore. They're the ones setting goals for themselves and telling us, hey, we're going to go do this, this, and this is the points we're going to get. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, sweet, this is awesome. I'm perfectly A-okay with that, so let's go. So it's fun to watch with them.
And then lastly here with the Cornell Invitational coming up this Saturday, what are you expecting to see out of the team and what are your expectations for that meet?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a smaller meet. It's going to be a little chillier too, so we'll see how the weather decides to deal with us. So there's going to be some wind as well, so hopefully the wind gauges end up being under 4 miles an hour. But honestly, this one's just about execution and ramping up. The latter half of our season is going to be some big meets coming up. We got Mount Mercy next weekend. We got Iowa, potentially KU, Drake Relays, Kip Jarvin, then conference. Like we got some really big meets, and honestly, that's where we're pushing more towards instead of kind of this one. This one's more of like executing our game plans and really getting ready for those bigger meets where we're just going to let them let loose and have them attack. And hopefully it just goes in their favor as well as ours.
All right, well, once again, good luck this weekend, and thank you for joining us out here. We'll be right back here next week with the William Penn Coaches Show.